Hi everyone, my name is Susan Morris and I am the K-12 Social Studies ISS here at the Southeast District. And today we're going to be looking at how we can use the assessment planner with a social studies example. But before we jump into this session, we're going to look at our essential and supporting questions. Why do effective assessment practices matter? And how can teachers use writing as formative and summative assessments of student learning and provide specific and timely feedback? As a reminder from our quarter one professional learning, you were introduced to the assessment planner. And there are 4 steps when using the assessment planner. So we're just going to have a little bit of a refresh for a moment. The first step in using the planner is that you're going to closely read the language of the target standard. Then you're going to identify the content specifications, or really the skills that are going to be assessed. Then we're going to create specific learning targets based on those skills and content. And then finally, we're going to determine what formative and summative assessments you're going to use to progress monitor students' acquisition of both skills and content. So here's the preview of what the assessment planner looks like. It is a combined tool that enhances UBD stages 1 and 2 and creates a comprehensive plan for you to be able to accurately identify what skills and content students need to be able to know and do, as well as to have an assessment plan to assess those skills. And they're all wrapped around the standards. So we're going to use a social studies example, and we're going to see how this particular planner creates really a holistic assessment framework that identifies the skills and the content from a 10th grade standard, and how this planner also informs our instructional planning as we get ready for UBD stage 3. And just a note here before we dig into our 10th grade example, when studying the world wars, we can easily get mired in the complicated and interrelated systems embedded within each global conflict. And really, it's impossible to cover all the various aspects of each war. And what this assessment planner does is it helps keep us focused on the content and skills of the standards. And that really helps us from falling down like an instructional rabbit hole. So let's take a look at this 10th grade example that we've been talking about. This is from Global Studies 10, and it's our current unit on crisis and achievement in the 20th century. So we see that our standard displayed is standard 10.5A, and we're going to introduce students to the changes in the geopolitical landscape of the early 20th century. And what I've done is I've highlighted the performance indicator of what students need to be able to know and do. So they're going to compare and contrast long and short-term effects of World War I and World War II. And for this specific example, I have completed an assessment planner for you using this 10th grade standard. And if you want, you can click on the link that's found within the presentation, which is right here. Or you can also click on the link that is embedded within our course. And it is, what you're seeing on the screen is just a small portion of the completed planner. So to begin this process, we're going to start with the standard because this provides us with the knowledge, skills, and behaviors that we want students to acquire as they progress through this portion of our course. And as we continue to unpack or deconstruct the standard, then we'll be able to identify the performance indicators, or really the skills that students should be able to demonstrate by the time they finish with this portion of Global Studies 10. And we're going to do that by recognizing the key verbs, which are compare and contrast and cause and effect, because those verbs describe the overarching skill sets that students need to exhibit to show competency of the standard. However, these are broad skills, and those are made up of numerous small, discrete skills that you can also identify on your plan. So you'll notice that I've added identify and analyze to our skill list, because when we're practicing these skills, that leads to enhanced analytical reasoning and problem solving, which helps students think critically about causes and effects of each world war. And also it enables them to write a more balanced comparative essay. Remember, when we're starting this process, we're identifying the skills because those are the things that are being assessed. Our next step is to think about the essential content that's necessary for students to accurately identify and analyze the causes and effects of both wars. Drawing attention to specific details is going to help students improve their skills in evaluating the larger context of the early 20th century. And we need to move beyond memorizing a set of dates or battles and names. To think critically, students need to practice acquiring content knowledge through those critical thinking skills. So it just reinforces what we've been trying to promote in contemporary social studies, that it's teaching content through skills. So after we've identified our primary skills and content, in this phase of the planning, we're identifying the learning targets that we want to assess as students move through the content of the standards. So by articulating these learning targets, we're able to then formatively assess and determine which students who are grasping this knowledge and skills really quickly, and those who are perhaps below a proficiency level. These learning targets can create connections between skills and content and student understanding. They also help to inform our lesson planning for when we get to UBD stage 3. And then the final step in the assessment planner is to decide the assessment methods that you're going to use to determine if your students achieve success in their performance goals. That's the skills of comparing and contrasting the causes and effects of World War I and World War II. And we want to be sure to include both the formative and summative assessments that you're going to use. For example, as a formative task, I'm going to give students the opportunities to identify 3 causes of World War I. And we're going to do this after we've read and evaluated sources and had discussions in class. And I might start using a Google Forms quiz as a checkpoint to kind of evaluate students' thinking and their writing. And so based on the scores of each checkpoint of each of my formatives, then I will be able to provide targeted support to groups of students who need some specific instructional help understanding content, or those that need additional practice to help develop their analytical skills. And as I think about what my summative assessment is going to be, it's going to measure that piece that we identified in the standard, right? In standard 10.5a, it clearly says students will compare and contrast long and short-term causes and effects of World War I and World War II. And so that's what I'm going to assess, most likely as an essay, and I'm going to use the DoDEA grade 9-10 informative explanatory rubric to help me assess students' skills in mastering the standard. So in front of you, you're going to see the grade-specific rubric for informative explanatory writing for grades 9 and 10. And this rubric is ginormous, and it's broken down into 4 sections. And those sections are the development of ideas, organization, word choice and style, and mechanics. This large-scale rubric, it can really feel overwhelming to students, and honestly for me too as a teacher. So we might want to focus on just the section of the rubric which gives us the most data on how well our students are going to achieve the goal of the standard. Using a single point rubric provides us as educators additional data points and evidence about what our students can and cannot do. So if we have data in our classrooms where we know that students are having difficulty with supporting reasons and evidence logically, then we need to be collecting even more evidence that say, you know what, yes, they can, or yeah, we know this is an area that they need to work on. For example, in this comparative essay, students read and analyzed multiple sources in my class, and they used evidence from these sources to support their reasoning. And in my formative data, I saw growth in a particular area. And when I'm evaluating the summative, I want to provide compliments as my feedback in the greatest strengths column. So I might say something to a student like, your analysis of the causes of World War I created really clear connections for the reader and set up a logical framework for comparing and contrasting both world wars. I want to give a lot of credit for the growth that I've seen students make over this unit. But also there is the column that says opportunities for growth. And so in that column, I might add, your conclusion reads like a restatement of your introduction. How can you tie everything together with a new point or using different language? Maybe that student has been struggling with the conclusion of bringing things all together. But when we use a single point rubric, this is really a strengths-based approach to providing feedback. Anytime we write something in the opportunities for improvement or revision or growth column, whatever you would like to call it, we need to balance that with some language that's in the greatest strength box, because we really want to encourage students to keep plugging with their writing and to really recognize what they're doing well, because this is an incredibly motivating tool for students. It helps them not to give up on their writing. And what we want them to see is that there's really great stuff over here in the greatest strengths box. And we want them to figure out ways that we can really together move from the opportunities to the growth into the opportunities or the greatest strengths column. Now that we've gone through the social studies 10th grade example, talk to your department or grade level team teachers, or if you're a singleton, just think about the discussion questions that are on the screen. And as you close out those discussions for the rest of the afternoon, the larger goal is for you to create your own assessment plan. And we're going to circle back to answering those essential questions and supporting questions that we started this session with. Why do effective assessment practices matter? And how can you best plan to effectively assess your students during this next grading period? And I'm hoping that you're going to enjoy using this organizational tool to help you identify your methods of assessment as they connect to the skills and content found within the standards. So now the rest of the time is yours. You're going to take the next couple of hours to use that planner, if you will, to create your assessment plan for the second quarter. It's been a pleasure to be with you guys today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your professional learning sessions. Thank you.